Welcome to Social Situation, episode 14. Today, we have an exciting guest joining us who is an entrepreneur, educator, and former NFL player. Walter Mendenhall is passionate about empowering young minority males and supporting them along their entrepreneurship journey. Trevor, welcome back. It's great to be back. I always love seeing you and catching up. What have you been up to since we last spoke?
It's conference season where I'm at. I was in Calgary last week for a conference, the Partnership Conference, which brings together nonprofits and businesses, brands to help them tell stories around the impact they're having in their communities and forming grassroots partnerships. So I was speaking at that conference about building trust and the use of AI and what it's good at, what it's not good at in building trust. And I referred to our conversation with George Sanasakis earlier in the season last year when we were speaking with him about AI and referenced how he spoke about it and some of the positive benefits if we can channel it correctly and some of the guardrails to put in place for where it is not going to be so helpful for us, namely around taking over our relationships where humans are really good at relationships. So, we know that we talk about that a lot. So that was the first conference I was at, and then I ended up going to Web Summit, which was held here in Vancouver at the end of last week for the last 2 days. It was happening over the course of the week, but it can be in two places at once. That thus is the challenge with conference season overall. But I came back. There were a lot of good talks, huge exhibition hall, tens of thousands of people in town for that. So it was really exciting and lots going on. So it's been very busy, go 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 over on my side, Erin, and I imagine it's been pretty similar for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I find conferences to be so, exhausting, yes, and rewarding at the same time, just being around other brilliant minds. And I'm speaking about you, Trevor, you are brilliant. And surrounding yourself with like-minded people that share a passion or career path or that are just looking to learn. It kind of reminds me of being back in school and just being able to like sit in on these amazing sessions and be a sponge and gain new ideas. And of course, the networking and community building piece is so important. So I'm glad that those were enjoyable and beneficial. And hopefully, you're getting some rest afterwards. And yeah, speaking of our past guests, I am gearing up to speak with Catalina Parker's group, as everyone will recall, hopefully, from her amazing episode recently. Catalina runs Relatable Nonprofit, and I'll be speaking to her members next week about the topic of community building and networking and why it is so important as you start a business of your own, but just, of course, in general, as you go throughout your career, not just when you're looking for a new job, but how valuable it can be in all parts of your journey. So I'm looking forward to that and just getting some notes together. So yeah, and gearing up for summer too. I can't believe spring is flying by and looking forward to some warm weather and some downtime as well. So all good things over here. And yeah, really excited for our conversation today.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun. It's a perfect mood. It's summer. It feels like summertime at the very least, even if it's a little early in the year for it, technically. But yeah, love where we're at. Love the community building that's going on, Erin. Well done, and really looking forward to hearing how your talk goes. That should be
You.
exciting. Look at you, giving talks, building the communities, working with our guests. That's
Trying.
exactly the values we talk about practicing being put in place.
Totally, totally. We have amazing guests, so we are lucky and fortunate for that.
Exactly.
We will take a quick break, Trevor, and we're going to be right back with Walter Mendenhall of Male Mogul Initiative. So stay tuned.
$60 billion is being given by companies to nonprofits in 2024 to maximize regulatory benefits and manage reputation for employees and customers. Some companies are struggling, the rest are using OrgMatch because OrgMatch optimizes this process, saving time and money required in due diligence, research, and administration, while increasing confidence in the impact and investment earned. That's why community investment teams around the world are trusting OrgMatch to get the job done. Find out for yourself by going to orgmatch.com. That's ORGMATCH.com to get started now for free. Welcome to Social Situation, and we're thrilled to have Walter Mendenhall here, founder of Male Mogul Initiative Incorporated and minority owner of Help With My Loan. Walter's joining us today. He's a Chicago-born entrepreneur, an educator, and a former NFL player. After overcoming early challenges, including a learning disability, he pursued his passion for empowering young minority males by founding the Male Mogul Initiative, which develops leadership and entrepreneurship skills. Recently, Walter also acquired a financial technology company, Help With My Loan, responsible for over $850 million in loan organizations. Walter, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to jump right into things here. Just to introduce yourself, can you please share with our audience, your origin story, how you came into this space of creating an impact?
Yeah, so my name is Walter Mendenhall. Like you said, I'm the founder of the Male Mogul Initiative, originally from Chicago, Illinois. And man, I don't even know where to start. I will start just with my background. So I have a sports background, played football at the University of Illinois, Champaign, played professional football for 2 years. And when football was done with me, the NFL stands for not for long, actually became a teacher and a coach at a local high school. Loved what I was doing, felt like I was having great impact in the classroom, but I felt like there was more I could do. And this forced me to take a year off, figure out what I needed to do during that time. Taught some adjunct professor work at a couple of local universities in sociology and leadership development, and eventually went into non-for-profit. I was a teen program director at a local agency here in Chicago, and it was there where, I had the idea for the Male Mogul Initiative. I remember going into a career day, meeting a great young man, honor roll student, basketball player, very, very well respected in his school, but sold drugs to get the things that he wanted. And I thought to myself, how many young men in this city have the gifts, skills, and talents to be successful legal entrepreneurs, but didn't have the exposure or the opportunity. So there, in 2018, the Male Mogul was formed, started with 5 kids at a local church, and has blossomed to serving over 3,000 young people, producing over 200 plus jobs. In 2022, we were MIT Solve. 2023, we were MIT Solve semi-finalist. 2022, Chicago Innovation Award winner. In 2024, we opened up Chicago's first small business incubator for youth and young adults, called Collab, which is short for collaboration, a place where film, arts, and enterprise meets. We feel the most valuable currency in under-resourced communities of color is creativity, and Collab is a place where you can learn and monetize that creativity. And then earlier this year, we acquired a financial technology business, Help With My Loan, that uses OCR or AI technology to underwrite and place loans quicker than humans. And, just continuing to be innovative and creating solutions to complex problems here in Chicago.
That is incredible. Thank you for all the really important work that you're doing. It sounds like it's been obviously impactful to the community, but I'm sure personally impactful to you as well. And it's great to hear about your journey and kind of how you went from professional football kind of onwards. You're our first professional football player, on the podcast. So very exciting for us. And even more exciting, the really impactful work that you've continued to do, since your time playing. I'd love to dive a little bit more into kind of your origin in sports and how that maybe has influenced the work that you're doing now. We've talked to some other folks on the podcast about sports and how there are so many great things you can learn from, being on the field, being on a court, whatever sport you're playing, and whether it's teamwork, community, collaboration, helping one another, giving back. So I'm curious if you can kind of share with us, what the importance of sports, was like to your journey and to your journey of building community and the way that you are now, and, giving back to folks that, might be needing some support along their own path.
Yeah, I think for myself, I think sports and business have a lot of some of the same characteristics in order to be successful. One of the things I think sports has helped me to have and develop was discipline. To do things that you don't want to do consistently and do it at a high level. I think I think what a lot of people don't talk about is just constant repetition and consistency in whatever you do. If you could do something for 100 days, I'm sure you're going to be better on the 100th day than you are or you're going to see more traction on the 100th day than you did on the first day. And I think sports is the same way. The more you do something, it becomes second nature. It's a lot of adversity in sports, and I've experienced a lot of adversity, and the same thing in the business world. And I tell my young people all the time, life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond to it. And a lot of times it's not what happens, it's how you respond that's really going to make the difference. And sports is the same way. How do you overcome, adversity, trials, and keep fighting to win?
I love that response, Walter. And I, adversity is a huge, builder in terms of, once you get past it, you're more resilient. You can bring more people together. Tell me, how are you finding people to bring onto your projects, and how are you building these teams with people? Where are you finding them where they're at? How are you helping them to build that resilience? No matter where they're at, no matter how much resilience they have to be able to come on board and offer what they can to be part of these projects.
Yeah, man. So we have taken a very unique approach, which I think is maybe counterintuitive to the industry. What we have, and it's actually using, I feel, my giftedness as a teacher and a coach, is that we take particularly young people who have some of the attributes, the leadership, the passion, and other skills to be successful in a venture or anything that we're trying to do. And essentially what we do is develop them through our leadership, through our entrepreneurship, through our workforce development training. We put them on ventures, starting small. I know we've had kids that have, for the summer worked a, candy store, or, we've had somebody that we had a transportation business, and now they have to monetize this vehicle asset and learn how to, transport things, use a balance sheet, and really monetize, this vehicle. So what essentially we try to do is train our young people, give them an asset that they can manage. That is, I guess you could say, you know, I guess the word is something starts small and then continue to work themselves up. And while in real time, learning the gifts, the skills, and experiences and what it takes to be a successful business person or entrepreneur.
Hmm. Yeah, that is so important to, get young people involved in business and learning these, financial tools and, gaining this knowledge from a young age. And what a powerful gift you're giving to young people. And I'm curious, if you can tell us a little bit more about kind of this journey of someone through the Male Mogul Initiative. Let's say someone from the community hears about you all. What does it look like from day one? Do they apply to get in the program? How long are they with you all? Would love to hear a little bit more about, kind of start to when they maybe graduate and go off, working for themselves or, college or whatever might
Yeah,
be next for
yeah,
them.
that is great. So we have a 5 phase, I guess you could say, system. The first one is our learn phase. So we're actually going to the schools, whether it's the high schools, the alternative schools, the junior colleges, in the inner city of Chicago. We teach a leadership development course, stemming on what we call the 3 foundational questions to manhood, helping them understand who they are, why they matter, what's their purpose. We believe in an inside out approach. We feel that you can't produce on the outside unless you are, you have a change of mindset and go from essentially a consumer to a producer. And in order to become a producer, you have to know who you are, why you matter, and what's your purpose. And so we spend a semester really discovering those things. We're helping them assess their gifts, skills, and talents. We helping them to identify a problem that they want to solve and how they monetize that problem. From there, we have our develop phase, which is a out of school program, which helps them to develop their idea and or have them to learn a skill that they feel they have giftedness in. Then we have our apply phase where, usually this happens in the summer where they take on a summer internship and we have a project for them to do or an asset for them to manage and to build upon, helping them to learn real life business leadership skills that they spent time in the classroom learning, and now they're harnessing these things. From there, we have our Gap Innovation Program. So this is for 18 to 24-year-olds. This is essentially you can kind of think of it as a gap year program where we're teaching young people how to become asset managers. So we give them fundamental training. We help them to identify what it is that they would like to do. Then we put them in a, kind of a program in which they are now managing an asset or they are working for one of our ventures. And then from there, we invest in them if they are performing in a way that we give them some microfinancing to help them to grow their venture. And we go into what we call our community wealth building ecosystem, which is something that I have developed through my PhD studies, which essentially helps community build wealth through circular economies.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for taking us through that. That's just incredible. And I feel like, of course, you've put so much thought, and I'm sure, testing different kind of methods of, taking young people through this program and seeing what sticks and what fits and what they need and, kind of pivoting along the way. And I'm curious, a lot of folks that listen to our podcast are thinking of starting their own social venture, whether it's a nonprofit, a small business, something that is giving back to the community and making an impact. So I'm curious, Walter, if you can share any advice, any learnings that you have with folks about, how to build something from the ground up that is, really kind of inherently focused on community within the impact space. What, if anything, have you experienced along the way that's like worked super well, or maybe hasn't worked well in retrospect that you could share with our audience?
I think if I were to say 2 words, and I'm going to say them maybe in the order that a lot of people may not want, I think first you have to think sustainability,
Mhm.
and then you have to think innovation. So there is a problem that you want to solve, but how can you solve this problem sustainably? I think a lot of people go into something with a good heart, but end up getting burnt out real quick because they don't have a model for sustainability and for growth. So I would say, even if you're passionate about something and you want to pursue it, what's the sustainability model? What's the business model? How are you going to innovate and do something different than what you see in the market? For us, we saw a lot of programming, but we did not see ecosystems.
Mm.
And essentially, what we tried to do is, how can we take a dollar that has been invested in us, invested in our programming, and how can we make this dollar $2? How can we make this dollar $3 while at the same time creating impact within the communities? And essentially, that helped us to create an ecosystem, which is that helps young men take them from one stage all the way to another stage. And yeah, that's kind of, you know, what we've done, through what I said earlier.
That's great, Walter. I really appreciate that, and especially the focus on helping young men who I think are having a real moment right now in terms of the struggle that they're going through, and like mental health and finding purpose and learning discipline. Some of the things you've talked about, I think are really unique to what young men are facing. And so I'm wondering, number one, how are you, what do you think young men need right now, in general? And then how can, people around the world kind of show up and say, okay, let's have a better understanding of where this cohort is at so that we can have, more cohesion, more, we can work better together as an overall society where masculinity can be healthy and not toxic, and where it can coexist with with everybody.
I think that's a great question. I would say, if I were to say what young men are missing, and I think this is a counterintuitive answer, I think it's inspiration. Um, I was a former teacher, and what I saw as a teacher was a lot of young men who were, not that they were incapable of performing academically, they were just academically unmotivated.
Mm.
So I think with young men, you have to give them things that make sense and that they can connect the dots. I think a lot of times, a lot of young men are essentially, I don't want to say rebellious, but they're not going to do something if it doesn't make sense or they can't understand why they are doing something. So what we do at the Male Mogul is make sure we are connecting the dots for them, while at the same time having a standard, and it's, as opposed to us going down and to their standard, they're rising to our standard, and helping them to understand that if they do rise to our standard, there's a tangible reward. And that reward is essentially personal fulfillment, helping them to understand who they are, um, helping them to apply real life principles that will make them essentially better individuals, better men, and to help them to be pillars and assets in their communities.
I love that answer, Walter, and it makes me, want to ask you, how do you, do that for yourself, as a leader, as somebody who, has been under the burden of adversity and risen up to a number of challenges. I mean, starting any organization is a massive undertaking with a lot of uncertainty. It affects your mental health. It challenges every aspect of your being, as you know, right? And so, how do you show up for yourself, and what does self-care look like for you on this journey?
Man, I think it has evolved as I have gotten older. I think for myself, it is understanding my why. That's the first and foremost. I think every person that's doing this work has to have a why. And essentially, my why is to help a generation discover and realize their potential and make the impossible possible in their lives. So, figuring out that, I have this why, I have this passion is still something that I seek to do and I look forward to do every day. And when burnout comes and when relaxation comes, making sure I have proper disciplines to make sure I'm showing up the best way that I can. So this is exercise, this is eating right. This is for me, I love riding my bike. In Chicago, it's not warm often, but it's getting warmer. So it's nothing like, riding a bike on the lake, um, Lakeshore Drive and around the lake. I think it's a lot of what I call the micro habits, making sure I'm reading and I'm not distracting myself. Um, and my wife and my family, my kids. So I think they a lot of times replenish me. So these are the things that I do to make sure that I'm centered and I'm showing up as my best self. And when I am not showing up as my best self, um, I, block out time. So there's times where I don't even, or days that I don't even work in the office. I'm at home, so I can just think, I can replenish, I can get work done that I need to get done. So I'm really protective of my time. I have time blocks for certain things. I'm not the best, but I'm getting better at it. And I just make sure that when my tank is empty, that I'm trying to find something that can fill it.
Mm. Yeah, that's such a great reminder to us all. We're all works in progress, but it's great that you block your time. I think that's so important. We've talked to some other leaders about how important that is as well to, yeah, make time for you. And if we can, show up for ourselves and make sure that we're healthy and, fulfilled with our free time, then we can, do our best work and show up for others. So it's great that you have so many, passions and things outside of your work as well. And I'm curious, Walter, obviously your journey is so inspiring and the work that you're doing is making such an impact. And looking back on your career, I'm wondering if there are any standout moments, any aha moments or moments where you're like, this is why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, and this is what continues to drive me. I know you kind of mentioned before, the passion for the work and the impact, but were there any, without sharing details or names, were there any, young people that you worked with or any instances that were those, that you reflect back on and you're like, yep, this is why I'm still going, because I know it is not easy to start or run
Yeah.
a nonprofit. So
Yeah. I would say there's been a few over my journey. I think some of the most recent ones is that in 2023, we had three young men, ages 21 and 22, acquire multi-unit properties.
hmm.
So there's a lot of 30, 40 plus year olds that don't have property to their name, and we have 21, 22 year olds that have the financial discipline, that have went through our programming, that understood and took in the lessons, worked together, and were able to create their real estate portfolios at the age of 21 and 22. These are kids that did not go to college, that came from rough backgrounds. One of the young men, 2 years prior, was sitting in jail on a gun case. And, 2 years later, he was able to become a property owner. These are just a few of the plenty of examples of progress and change and inspiration that keeps me going.
Mm. What a great example you're setting for so many and for, all the young people that you're supporting, because I'm sure, as your work goes on, you're going to see these folks then inspire the next group of young men and the ripple effect. So you said you're supporting, thousands, or you have, worked with thousands, but that number is just going to multiply. So I'm sure that will be really exciting and fulfilling as your journey goes on. I'm sure you mentioned you have kids, for your kids, I'm sure you're such a great inspiration as well. Kind of reflecting back for a minute, before we kind of wrap things up in a few minutes here, we have a question that we love to ask all of our guests, and it's in relation to, kind of legacy. I'd love to hear when you look at, what you have created with the Male Mogul Initiative and, your recent acquisition of Help with My Loan, and all the work that you've done, in the classroom, on the football field and beyond, I'm curious what sort of legacy you hope to leave, and how you many years from now would like to be remembered for the work that you've done in the community.
Yeah, I think for me, and this is actually came from my dissertation research. Essentially, I want to solve three problems that I feel plague the city of Chicago and keeps it from being the ideal place to live, work, and learn. The first one is that 45% of African American young men ages 18 to 24 in Chicago are not in school or working. The second statistic is that 80% of capital needs for Black and Brown entrepreneurs in Chicago goes unmet each year, which is 146 million. And the third, 80% of gunshot victims in the city of Chicago are African American. And our solution to this is our community wealth building ecosystem, which consists of business incubation and acquisition, where we have our incubation is our collab space. One of our first acquisition was to help with my loan. Finance, helping people to access capital is another reason why we felt the help with my loan purchase was a good fit for us. Direct services. This is essentially our programming, essentially our gap year and our asset management programming, helping young people to build wealth and to manage assets. Then from there, indirect services, putting them with a network of people to help them to grow in their particular industry, which is the end result of that is job creation and ownership from people within the community, because we believe ownership is vital to the rebuilding of communities, because if you own something in your community, you are vested and you want what's best for it and you will be more involved. And essentially, I want this model to be duplicated in cities all across the United States. But essentially, when it's all said and done, I would like to solve or be the catalyst to solving those problems here in Chicago.
That's a beautiful legacy, Walter. And I think if you came close to that, it would be an incredible legacy in and of
Yeah.
itself. But I have no doubt that you're going to go all the way and probably beyond what you even have in mind for today. So congratulations on everything. I want to get back to one thing you brought up earlier, which is around inspiration for young men,
Mhm.
in their lives. And I want you to tell our audience, what are you inspired by, and what are you looking forward to continue to be, your kind of North Star for this work? I mean, it's challenging times for some folks. I mean, there's an affordability crisis going on. There's political crises going on, climate change, inequality, racism. How do we give people light, in moments like this, to continue to show up and do the work, and what is that for you?
That's a great question, man. What is inspiring me today? I think, to be honest, it's the transformation that I see in my young people, that we are working with, that we're partnering with, that we're mentoring. Um, to see them beat me to the office in a world where everybody wants to do the less work, the least work, get out the quickest, get paid. Like, to see there are people here because they believe in the vision. They believe in me. They believe in what we're doing. And it's not easy, but they're willing to roll up their sleeves and grind it out with me. It feels like I'm playing sports again, in which, you have a team and you have a goal, and, it's never easy to win a game. But when you do win, it makes it that much more fulfilling. And I think that is my inspiration to do what I do. And I think that also the one is just making this city and this country and this world a better place for my children. And that is something that inspires me. So just making sure that they have opportunity, they have legacy, they have inspiration that will outlast me.
Mm. Well, you're certainly doing all that and more. And, of course, we've talked a lot about, young men and kind of starting earlier and setting them up on the right path, so that they can then go back and support others in their community. And, as we think back to younger Walter, when you were the age of the young people that you support now, I'm curious, what would you then say, knowing Walter now? What would you say about yourself? Um, if you were, still in that, let's say 18 to 24 age
Wow,
bracket.
that is a great question. I don't think 18, 24-year-old Walter would never dreamed of doing this. uh, so I would say, I think first he would be shocked and then he would be proud.
Mm,
I think at 18 to 24, what I thought was that the best thing you can do was to be in the NFL and be running for touchdowns. But at the end of the day, it's a fleeting joy because essentially what you're doing is edifying yourself and inflating your own ego in a way. And what I'm doing now is a lot more fulfilling than when I was ever playing football. And I think a lot of people think I'm lying about that. But what you don't understand in football, like people see you on TV and they see the glory, but there's a lot of pain. It's a
mm,
lot of physical pain. There's a lot of anxiety. With just think about you playing a gladiator sport and they bring in, another 300 to 400 gladiators every season, and you got to fight your spot for your spot. You can't get hurt, but this is 100% injury sport that we play. And
mhm,
if one thing goes wrong, everything, your whole dream could be snatched away from you. And you constantly live in that.
mhm,
I think a lot of people
mhm,
don't, they just see like, oh, you're getting paid this or that. And then what they don't know about football is that your contract is not guaranteed. So it's
mhm,
like writing it in invisible ink. Because, as soon as you
mhm,
get hurt or you can't perform, that number dwindles heavily, really mightily. So you're living in a constant state of fear and
mhm,
anxiety, and for the vast majority of players, and that's not a great feeling. Um, but helping others, seeing development, having a purpose that's bigger than yourself, is a lot more fulfilling.
mhm.
Well, Walter, I think that's a perfect place to end it for today. We really appreciate your time and for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to connect with you and learn more about your work. Just before we sign off, where can people learn more about Male Mogul Initiative?
Yeah, so you can learn about Male Mogul Initiative by visiting our website, malemogulinitiative.org, male as in MALE, Mogul Initiative.org. You can give us a call at 312-620-5889 or visit our social medias. We are on Instagram at Male Mogul Initiative, all one word, and Facebook, Male Mogul Initiative, 3 words.
Amazing. Walter Mendenhall joins us from Chicago, Illinois. We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking to make an impact, but not sure where to start? Elevate Social Impact, a purpose driven consulting and coaching practice, helps companies develop their CSR strategies and embed a culture of giving back into their brand. And they guide individuals looking for fulfilling careers in social impact. Whether you're wanting to grow your company's give back efforts or find values alignment and make a greater difference through your work, Elevate Social Impact is excited to equip you with the knowledge, resources, and tools that you need to get started. Check out elevatesocialimpact.com today to learn more. Welcome back. It's time for us to share what's on our mind. Trevor, what has been on your mind lately?
Well, we were talking about summer earlier, Erin, and it's picnic season. It's time to get together with friends, and so I've been thinking about board games and spending time with friends playing board games. The board game that I've been playing recently with friends, which is great for four or so people, is Carcassonne, which is a little tile building game where you build little villages and landscapes and roads, and it's very cute and kind of medieval Renaissance era tiles in terms of what it looks like. But it's a really fun game, competitive, but also collaborative in some kind of ways because you're building a map with other people, and so there's a lot going on. So that is my nerdy self coming out to celebrate summertime, getting together with friends, pulling out a board game, and just having a laugh and a good time.
I love that so much. I appreciate the recommendation because I need some new game recommendations to play with friends this summer. That sounds so fun too. I love the idea of mapping. It actually made me think about, have you ever heard, Trevor, about, I think it's called geo mapping? You can help, there's an organization that I worked with in one of my prior roles that helps to put communities on the map that are not yet on the map to help them in like humanitarian crises, to help them, when there's war or any sort of strife or natural disaster, to help crews and teams better find them. And I was like, oh, this could, it's not quite the same as a board game sitting together in person, but if you like working as a team and you like maps, maybe that could be something fun for you and your friends to check out.
It's funny you mentioned that. So I had a client who is a director of social impact at a major brand, and she was saying to me that she was using this tool, Missing Maps, which is very similar to
Mhm.
geomapping, um, to bring her team together in community investment and employee engagement, and getting everyone kind of on the same page by playing these games together and spending time together, both doing good, but also, gamifying it in a way. And then they gamify it internally in their organization as well. So, it doesn't just have to be, out in the park with friends and family. You could, yeah, exactly. You could be playing games inside your own organization to motivate people and get results, which is,
Yeah, that's exactly what I did when I
yeah,
was working in employee engagement. We did that. And
right
it
on.
was so fun for people. I think especially the folks on the team that like playing games anyway, and it's like all for good. But hey, I love board games too. That's so great. So appreciate that recommendation. I'll have to check it out.
So you have to tell me, Aaron, what are you thinking about? What's been on your mind? I can't just be board games.
Well, this is kind of random. I think I had this thought one night. I know, Trevor, we were just chatting offline here a minute ago about how like sleep and how important it is and how it doesn't always happen. It was probably one of those nights where I was up, with tons of thoughts going through my mind. And this is so random, but I was thinking about how when I was a kid, backpacks, like the school backpacks, did not have a side pocket for water bottles. And I think I was thinking about this recently because I mean, my daughter's one, so obviously she doesn't have a backpack yet, but I have younger cousins and family friends that are school age, and they all have a backpack pocket. And I, as a kid, had that, kind of traditional 90s like LL Bean backpack that a lot of kids had, or the Jan Sport. And whenever you're thirsty, you would raise your hand and say, "Can I go to the water fountain?" And I don't remember my school necessarily like having water bottles, all around. It was very much you had to get out of your seat, you had to go into the hallway and get a sip of water. And now kids have water bottles. And it made me think about sustainability and made me think about how, we all kind of carry around our water bottle now and how it's such a simple thing that is low cost that's making such an impact. And I also am like curious to chat with like a backpack designer or someone in the retail space because I'm like, when did this switch happen? And I'm sure maybe there were some backpacks that had water bottle pockets. I never had one. I remember like I still have some of those backpacks because they've lasted and they don't have that side pocket. And now they sell them with it. And so, I don't think it's necessarily just a stylistic difference. I think it really is a shift in our culture and how we think about being sustainable and taking small actions to make great impact. So, yeah, one of those random middle of the night thoughts I was having. I was like, wow, this is like kind of profound in how the backpack, like space, retail space has shifted over the years since I was a kid. So yeah, that's what's been on my mind.
That is interesting. I want to ask how you came up with that, but I mean that's very interesting that's the case. I think you're right on in terms of like, looking at how things are designed has a major impact on our lives. Like, whether or not there's a pocket, making the water bottle accessible, meaning you'll carry it around, meaning you'll use less water, meaning we'll need to build fewer of these fountains. So it's ultimately yeah, it is really interesting to think about, yeah, what are these little micro changes we can make to things we're using every day that can sort of inch us toward sustainability and I guess a more resilient kind of economy.
Yeah, yeah, even the push away from, like buying, one-time use plastic water bottles or grabbing a paper cup. Like I love, whenever I go to a meeting or a cafe, I love seeing people bringing their water bottles and little kids. I actually just bought my daughter like a baby-sized water bottle, for our upcoming travels. So, starting young and making that, I think it's with anything sustainability wise, like if it's just ingrained in us from a young age, it's normalized and then it's rote and it's just part of how we show up in the world and we're doing all our small parts. So yeah, I have no idea how I came up with that. But those are my middle of the night thoughts, I guess. So
Keep them
anyway,
coming, Erin.
Trevor,
Keep them coming.
thanks. Thanks. Anyway, well, I am grateful for our conversation today, Trevor. Social Situation is co-hosted by me, Erin Mogul, Trevor Loke, and presented by Elevate Social Impact and OrgMatch. Editing is by Tristan Thompson. New episodes are released on the second Thursday of each month. Visit socialsituationpodcast.com to learn more or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.